TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel raises its level of alert along its southern border with the Gaza Strip. Russian President Vladimir Putin urges his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad to provide conditions for a large-scale return of Syrian refugees. Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz urges Europe to unite in a pan-European battle against political Islam. The Israeli military raised its level of alert along the country's southern border with the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip in light of an intelligence assessment of a possible attack by the Iranian proxy Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Despite a prolonged period of quiet between Israel and the Islamist groups in the jihadist-plagued territory, the IDF elevated its preparedness as the Islamic Jihad is set to commemorate the assassination of the commander of its Al-Quds brigades, Baha Abul Atta, who was killed in an Israeli aerial strike on the 12th of November of last year. Meanwhile, the commander of the Islamic Jihad, Khalid al-Batash, reportedly instructed his militants to prepare for a possible wide-scale military conflagration. However, TV7 was unable to immediately verify this report. Turning to Jerusalem, where Israel's Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital confirmed that the Secretary General of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Saeb Erekat, who was hospitalized some 3 weeks ago in critical condition after contracting the corona contagion, died at the age of 65. The death of Erekat, who also served as the chief Palestinian negotiator, came as a surprise to the leadership in Ramallah, which regarded him as a vital asset in its battle against the state of Israel.
يتقدم الرئيس محمود عباس أبو مازن من أسرة الفقيد الكبير وزوجته وأبنائه وبناته بالتعازي والمواساة سائلا العلي القدير أن يتغمده بواسع رحمته ويسكنه فسيح جناته مع الرفيق الأعلى، وأن يلهم أهله وذويه وجماهير شعبنا الصبر وحسن الاحتساب. ويعلن الرئيس الحداد بتنكيس الأعلام لمدة 3 أيام.
Separately in Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a televised announcement in which he echoed news over an interim analysis that has shown that the American multinational pharmaceutical corporation, Pfizer, managed to develop a vaccine with a 90% effective rate in protecting people from transmission of the corona contagion.
היום זה יום מאוד חשוב במאבק העולמי בקורונה. חברת פייזר הודיעה שיש יעילות של 90% בחיסון שהם פיתחו. להערכתי, גם כמה חברות אחרות מתקדמות ליעד זה, גם אנחנו מתקדמים. בחיסון שלנו זה עוד ייקח זמן. אבל דבר אחד ברור, לא רחוק היום, זה לא עוד שנים, זה עוד חודשים, שיהיו חיסונים שהם יהיו זמינים לאוכלוסיית העולם. היעד שלי כרגע הוא לעשות דבר אחד, להביא חיסונים לכם, אזרחי ישראל, ואנחנו נעשה את זה.
The Israeli Prime Minister went on to vaguely acknowledge domestic reports regarding advanced negotiations over Jerusalem purchasing a large quantity of vaccinations for the citizens of Israel. And while vaccinations in Israel have traditionally been issued on a voluntary basis, it has been revealed in recent days that the Israeli Health Ministry is considering a recommendation to legislate obligatory vaccinations against the corona contagion once a vaccine becomes available in the Jewish state. This was apparently discussed at a meeting of the Health Ministry's unit for managing pandemics crisis. Nevertheless, according to a discussion with legal health authorities, TV7 was informed that imposing such laws will most likely face legal hurdles, including at the Jerusalem Supreme Court. It is interesting to note, however, that the percentage of voluntary vaccinations in Israel is ranked one of the highest worldwide. Now in other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin urged his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad to provide conditions for a large-scale return of Syrian refugees. In a video conference, the Russian head of state insisted that relative peace and quiet throughout most of Syria have laid the groundworks for a voluntary return of refugees after the devastating war in Syria created the most severe refugee crisis since World War II.
Сейчас, когда на большей части территории Сирии наступил мир, спокойствие, есть хорошая возможность обеспечить массовое возвращение беженцев домой. И, конечно, важно, чтобы этот процесс шел естественным путем, без принуждения. Каждый сириец должен принять решение самостоятельно, получив достоверную информацию о положении дел у себя на родине, в том числе о предпринимаемых вами, господин президент, руководством Сирии шагах по налаживанию мирной жизни.
President Assad insisted, however, that the dire economic situation in his country does not yet allow for a massive return of refugees, the majority of whom reside currently in Turkey and EU member states, laying the blame on Western sanctions imposed by the United States and European Union.
الجزء الأكبر من هؤلاء اللاجئين هو من الداعمين للحكومة السورية، ولكن الظروف الحالية لا تسمح له بالعودة، فلدينا أمل كبير بجهودكم بجهود الدول الأخرى المشاركة بأن يكون هناك إمكانية لتخفيف أو رفع أو إزالة هذا الحصار اللا شرعي الظالم من أجل أن تتمكن دولة سوريا من القيام بكل واجباتها تجاه أولئك العائدين، البعض منهم عاد أو الآخرين الذين يرغبون بالعودة.
The international conference Assad referred to pertains to a UN-sponsored event in Damascus, which aims to discuss the status of refugees and displaced individuals throughout the war-torn country. In related news, the U.S. State Department announced a series of new sanctions against 19 individuals and entities that are responsible for the death of over 70 Syrian civilians and injury of nearly 500 others in an aerial bombardment in Syria's city of Douma, northeast of Damascus, approximately 5 years ago. Per the State Department's written announcement, the Trump administration's sanctions targeting military commanders, members of parliament, government of Syria entities, and financiers highlight how deeply the Assad regime has corrupted Syria's institutions. Turning now to Vienna, where Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz highlighted the crucial need to develop a pan-European approach towards foreign Islamist terrorists who continue to roam free throughout the continent. Chancellor Kurz further emphasized the need to confront the ideology behind the heinous terror acts which repeatedly plague European cities.
Terrorismus, das ist die Tat selbst, aber dahinter steht die Ideologie des politischen Islam. Es braucht einen akkordierten Kampf gegen den politischen Islam, gegen die Basis, die Ideologie hinter dieser Aggression auf unsere Gesellschaft, auf unsere westliche Lebensweise. Das ist ganz entscheidend, denn solange es diese Ideologie gibt, wird es junge Menschen geben, die radikalisiert werden, wird es Hassprediger geben, die vielleicht selbst keinen Terroranschlag verüben, aber andere auf diesen Weg bringen.
Kurz also emphasized the need for closer cooperation of the separate European intelligence agencies, while separately asserting the necessity to secure the outer borders of the European Union.
Und zum Dritten braucht es natürlich auch einen ordentlichen Schutz der EU-Außengrenzen. Nur wenn wir als Europäische Union entscheiden, wer zuwandert und wer nicht, nur wenn wir die Kontrolle darüber haben, wer einreisen kann in die Europäische Union und wer nicht, werden wir Sicherheit innerhalb des Schengen-Raums gewährleisten können. Und daher ist das auch ein ganz, ganz wesentlicher Punkt.
In response to the growing awareness by European heads of state who openly strive for a united approach against political Islam and Islamism, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan condemned what he referred to as Islamophobia.
İslam düşmanlığı devlet başkanı seviyesinde teşvik ediliyor, destekleniyor. Fikir özgürlüğü bahanesi altında Müslümanların kutsallarına yönelik alçakça saldırılar düzenleniyor.
The Turkish leader, who heads Ankara's Islamist AK party, further rejected claims of responsibility for inflaming Muslim individuals in Europe. It is important to explain that Turkey is an ardent backer of the Muslim Brotherhood, the most influential organization that promotes political Islam. Among others, the Muslim Brotherhood is supported by Qatar and Hamas and is today headquartered in Austria after the United Kingdom sought to investigate the organization's activities in the British capital London, where its headquarters were situated for several years. Before that, it was headquartered in the Egyptian capital Cairo, yet was forced to flee in light of its terror listing by Egyptian authorities. It is important to also note that the organization managed to install political figures in most Western legislators to advance its Islamist cause, including in Washington, D.C. Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7 Israel's prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you today to join myself and the team here in Jerusalem to lift up the United States once again in prayer for its salvation and peace, alongside our prayers, of course, also for the volatile situation in Europe and in South Africa, the persecuted Christians in Nigeria and North Korea, and the situation in Armenia, in addition to our ongoing prayers for the peace of Jerusalem, the salvation of Israel, and for all those who are impacted by the corona contagion and its numerous ramifications worldwide. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Tov U'Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.